Ever feel a little foggy after a big plate of rice? I know I have.
Oh, yeah.
And get this, there's actual research suggesting that white rice could be linked to slower reaction times.
Really?
Yeah. Today we're looking at this interesting study from the Qatar Biobank, published in the journal Life.
Okay.
We'll be unpacking what it means for you and your brain, especially if you're all about optimizing your mental performance, like me.
Yeah, optimizing brain performance is always a hot topic. It's fascinating how what we eat can impact how our brains function. You don't always think about it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start with reaction time. What is it and why is it so important for cognitive function?
Well, reaction time is essentially the speed at which your brain processes information and responds to a stimulus. It's that split-second decision-making that you need when you slam on the brakes or when you try to catch something that's falling.
Oh, okay.
And it's really a fundamental aspect of cognitive function because it reflects how efficiently your brain is working.
Right, so slower reaction times could be a sign that something's not quite right.
Exactly. Slower reaction times can be an early indicator of cognitive decline.
Oh, wow.
And it can also impact your performance just in everyday life. Think about driving, playing sports, or even just having a quick conversation.
Right.
Reaction time matters.
So back to the study. Tell me more about how they actually measured this link between white rice and reaction time.
Well, this study looked at over 1,000 adults in Qatar, where, of course, rice is a dietary staple.
Uh-huh.
Researchers tracked their rice consumption and then tested their reaction times using a standardized computer test.
Okay.
What they found was higher rice consumption was indeed associated with slower reaction times.
Okay, so there seems to be a connection. But I'm guessing it's not quite that simple.
You're right, it's never that simple, is it?
No.
The researchers discovered that this link between rice and reaction time was much more pronounced in people who also had certain health conditions.
Like what?
Things like hypertension, being overweight or obese, and surprisingly, even lower LDL and total cholesterol levels.
Wait, lower cholesterol? I always thought that was a good thing.
It usually is. But this is a great example of how research can sometimes reveal these unexpected nuances.
Yeah.
It's possible that in this context, lower cholesterol levels might be a marker for something else going on, something that affects both reaction time and how rice is metabolized.
Oh.
It's a bit of a puzzle. More research is needed to understand why this is happening.
That makes sense. So should everyone be ditching white rice based on this study?
Not necessarily. Remember, this was just one study
Yeah.
in a specific population. But it does raise important questions about the impact of white rice on cognitive function,
Yeah.
particularly for people with these other health conditions. It's definitely something to be mindful of.
All right, so let's say you're someone who loves their rice, and you're maybe a little concerned about this study.
Yeah.
What are some of the possible mechanisms at play here? Why might white rice be affecting some people's brains this way?
Well, there are a few interesting theories that the researchers explored. One possibility is magnesium deficiency. Refined grains like white rice are relatively low in magnesium,
Okay.
which of course plays a crucial role in brain health and function.
So could it be that people who eat a lot of rice are simply not getting enough magnesium? And that's impacting their reaction times?
It's certainly plausible. While the study didn't find magnesium to be the main culprit, it's still something to consider. Another potential factor is the high glycemic index of white rice.
Right. White rice tends to cause those blood sugar spikes. Could that be bad news for our brains?
It's possible. Over time, those repeated spikes in blood sugar could potentially contribute to damage and impaired cognitive function. It's a bit like revving your car engine too hard too often. Eventually, it can take a toll. And there's another aspect we haven't talked about, the potential for arsenic accumulation.
Arsenic.
Yeah. Rice tends to absorb arsenic from the environment more readily than other crops.
Oh, okay. Now that's something I haven't really thought about. How big of a concern is arsenic in rice, especially when it comes to cognitive function?
It's definitely worth being aware of. While this study didn't focus on arsenic, it is something to consider in the broader context of rice consumption. Arsenic is naturally occurring,
Right.
found in soil and water, and it can build up in rice over time. Long-term exposure to high levels has been linked to various health issues, including cognitive problems.
So even if you're buying organic rice, you could still be exposed to arsenic.
That's right. It's not so much about organic versus non-organic, but more about the rice plant itself.
Got it. So if someone is concerned about this, what can they do to minimize their exposure from rice?
Well, there are a few things you can do. Rinsing your rice thoroughly before cooking can help remove some of the surface arsenic.
Oh, okay.
Like washing your fruits and vegetables, it's always a good idea to give them a good rinse.
So rinsing. Got it. Anything else?
Another tip is to cook your rice with more water than usual and then drain off the excess after it's cooked. That can also help reduce the concentration.
Interesting. So it's almost like diluting it out.
Precisely. And there's also some evidence that suggests certain types of rice, like basmati rice, tend to have lower arsenic levels compared to others.
Good to know. So to recap what we've learned, this study suggests that white rice might be linked to slower reaction times,
Mm.
especially for people with those specific health conditions we talked about earlier. We explored some potential explanations like magnesium deficiency, high glycemic index, and arsenic levels. But of course, more research is needed to fully understand this.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember that cognitive function is influenced by so many factors, not just what we eat.
That's a great point. So beyond being mindful of our rice intake, what are some other things people can do to support their brain health and keep those reaction times sharp?
Well, exercise is a big one.
Hmm.
Regular physical activity has been shown to improve cognitive function and reduce the risk of cognitive decline.
So get those bodies moving, folks. What else?
And don't underestimate the power of sleep. Getting enough quality sleep is essential for brain health. It's when our brains consolidate memories and clear out toxins.
Rice in moderation, lots of exercise, plenty of sleep. What else?
Mental stimulation is key too. Challenge your brain with things like puzzles, games, learning new skills.
Yeah.
And never underestimate the importance of social connection. Spending time with loved ones, engaging in conversations, all these can help to keep your brain sharp and ward off loneliness, which can also impact cognitive function.
Sounds like it's all about a holistic approach.
Yeah.
Taking care of our physical, mental, and social well-being. It's all interconnected.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of these deep dives, isn't it? We get to explore these connections and gain a deeper understanding of how everything fits together.
I totally agree. It's like we're putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle of knowledge about the human body and mind.
And sometimes even seemingly small pieces, like the study on rice, can offer really valuable insights into the bigger picture.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered the study, explored potential mechanisms, and talked about some lifestyle tips. What else is there to unpack in this deep dive? We've talked a lot about white rice, but what about brown rice?
Oh, yeah.
The whole grain, and it's got all that fiber, more nutrients.
Right.
Do you think that could make a difference?
It's a great question. And researchers are still looking into that, but there's definitely reason to believe that brown rice could have a different impact compared to white rice.
What makes you see that?
Well, as you mentioned, brown rice is a whole grain. So it's got the bran and the germ. Those are the parts that have all the fiber, magnesium, and other good stuff for your brain. And white rice doesn't have those.
Yeah.
It's just a refined carbohydrate.
So those extra nutrients in brown rice could potentially offset some of the negative effects.
It's possible. The higher fiber content in brown rice can help to regulate blood sugar, so you don't get those big spikes we talked about.
Right.
And the extra magnesium could help support healthy brain function.
So switching to brown rice could be a good thing for people who are concerned about their cognitive health.
It's definitely something to consider. Of course, more research is needed to compare brown and white rice directly, but based on what we know about nutrition, it's definitely a promising avenue to explore.
It sounds like there's a lot more to learn about this whole rice and brain connection. But this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. It's amazing how what we eat can affect our bodies and minds.
Exactly. So for our listeners, if you're curious about diet and brain health, we encourage you to do your own research. Keep those brains buzzing. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Unlock Your Mind for more. We'll see you next time.